Tonight we kind of finished up our last lesson. We were in the book of Nehemiah, and so we were trying to finish that up a little bit. We started with Ezra, and we kind of put them back to back because that's how they were originally presented. They were presented on the same scroll, actually, and so that's how a lot of the old Jewish scholars used to present this back to back, because you want to go straight together, and the message kind of flowed together. It really did. It really matched well, and you can see and if you have Ezra, you have the backstory for Nehemiah. It helps you understand Nehemiah even better. It really does. And it also helps you understand other books like Zechariah, because it's the backdrop for that book. It's all about that, getting the whole context. Helps you really understand the Bible better versus nitpicking just a couple verses. Because if all we do is nitpick those couple verses, we don't get the whole context, do we? So if we can read off a whole section at a time, it comes alive.
Yeah, that's how folks get it wrong. They leave so much out. They choose what they want and then leave the other, and they can take a scripture and turn it around.
Exactly. And I know that Joey, he tries to do a snippet sometimes because he has limited time, and he's trying to get it within a certain time frame so people will sit and listen and take home with them. But if you don't study your Bible afterwards and study context around that and see if you agree with them, you miss out on the point, and people forget they have homework. We always have homework, and most people don't do their homework. So I decided I'm going to pick up a new book. I'm going to pick up Genesis. This is actually what I'm doing my dissertation on, so y'all get that whole spiel. So if I should know my Genesis book.
We should all have it just about memorized by now.
Should. But so many people have, since they learned about, the 6 days of creation when they're in Sunday school, they don't think they ever have to really study that again.
Yeah.
And so we just miss things, and we need to study it, because there's more and more stuff that's there that you discover later on as you grow with the Lord that you didn't see before. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing about the Bible. You think you understand a verse, you go back again as you grow and grow and grow, and your understanding changes and changes, and it matures. So it's important that we go back and look at it. So we're going to be in Genesis 1. Book of Genesis is so vitally important. If you don't realize, we just passed the 100th anniversary of the Scopes Monkey trial. That was a big deal back in 1920s, back in 1925, because it was supposed to be about a teacher who had violated the Butler Act.
Yeah.
There's a law called the Butler Act. It's stayed in the books for like 60 years, where a teacher could not teach a theory in science class in the state of Tennessee that contradicted the Bible, what the Bible taught about creation. Okay, and you could teach that man came from lower life forms. Okay, that or lower forms of life. So you couldn't come from a single celled organism up to some type of fish thing, up to something else that creeped on the land, up to something that looks like a monkey or something, all the way up to a man.
Yeah, that little courthouse is down in Dayton. Used to pass it all the time when my sister and her husband lived down here in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the anniversary. I wish I would have gone. I was out of school. It was in the summer. I said, "How can you go?" I'm still gonna go. Still gonna go, because that would still be great for great just research. As long as just seeing things, instead of just reading about them. I have a transcript of it, so for my dissertation, I went through the whole transcript of it. So I know all the ins and outs of that trial. And one of the things they did was they took the emphasis off of Mr. Darrow, took the emphasis off of the actual defendant himself, and put it on the law itself, because he kept on making it about the constitutionality of the actual law itself. And because he's like, Judge, you can rule on constitutionality of stuff. He's like, so let's talk about this, can this even be enforced? And it turns out in the end, he had a letter from the governor of Tennessee himself saying that he never thought the law would ever be enforceable. The get-go. But it was a symbolic thing that they passed. They didn't think anybody would actually go to court over it, because the fine was $100. That was it. It was $100 fine. And of course, the UCLA was just looking for any case that they could make stink out of, and they did. And they blew it up, and they put it everywhere. It was a big PR stunt, is what it was. And they made the town look like a bunch of backwards country folks didn't have a clue. They're talking about, that they had a guy we had a guy come in. He had raped the president twice. He was like the Secretary of State, coming in and be on the defendant side. So they had like big name lawyers out, the best defense attorney in the country on the defense side. So I mean, it was over $100 fine. So that's what you know right there. It's PR stunt. And what it came down to was whether they believed that the Book of Genesis was really to be taken literal or not. And the defense lawyer put the prosecution on the stand and had him testify, and he eventually came down to where he didn't believe that there was literal 24 hours a day in the first chapter of Genesis. That's what he meant. And I mean, technically, the defense lost, but they actually won in appeals eventually. But I mean, he got the prosecution to admit they didn't even really believe exactly what the Bible said. And it's like that's what Satan wants to do. He wants to trip us up, and if we don't know our book of Genesis, I mean, he'll trip you up for everything else. It comes like it's like a domino effect. One hits the other, 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 and it's just the rest of your theology just flops if you don't have it right in Genesis. And there's a lot of people who are saying a lot of things, especially on their Facebook, on their Instagram, on their Reels, on their TikTok accounts. I mean, there's a lot of people giving a lot of their 2 cents out there who have no clue when it comes to Genesis. They're all over the place. They're all over the board, and they expect to be held as some type of a knowledgeable person for everything else about the Bible. And they're sitting there setting up shop, teach it to the masses, It's like, do they understand their Genesis? That's a good key thing. What do they actually believe? That will tell you what the rest of the theology is going to follow. So that's what I would ask them. I would ask them, what do you believe about Genesis 1? Genesis 1. It's the most important verse in the whole Bible. It seems so easy, but it's been so misconstrued and so redirected and so reinterpreted that, it's crazy what people believe. Yeah, it really is. And so that's why I started writing my dissertation, because I'm like, that's pretty simple to write something on. No, it's like an iceberg. You see the top of it, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. But then you realize it's this deep. I only had to write like 70 words on it, like 25,000 words on it. But when I start getting through my first chapter, I was like, I was already at 10,000 words. Chapter 1. So now I'm chapter 2. I'm like at 15,000 words. I'm like, okay, 25,000 words is going to be easy to hit at this point, because there's so many things. If I had to be able to exhaust all those things, all those avenues to make it be able to defend it, that's a lot. So I know Joey's working on his Revelation thing. He wanted to start Revelation, State of Revelation on Wednesday night. So I was like, well, then I'll take the other end of the book. Maybe eventually we'll meet in the middle.
If we got time.
If we got time.
I mean, good Lord, let us.
I saw video. I've been seeing videos of people taking in Jerusalem of the menorah they built. They have it like one that's pure gold, and they have it in a glass case. Yeah. And I'm like, that's amazing, because I mean, that's gonna be the menorah that's in the Tribulation Temple. You can see the red heifers they're trying to use. They already did a practice ceremony just to see how it works, because they already had the priestly robes and everything for the Tribulation Temple. They're already ready to go. These guys are already practiced. The actual altar was dedicated back in 2019. It's been there, right? They have all the plans. As soon as they know what to do with the Dome of the Rock, as soon as they get permission to bulldoze that thing, that new temple's gonna be up in less than a couple months. I think they know how to gonna be like a pop-up. Boom. It's gonna be there. And it's gonna be a very modern looking building. And people are gonna go, whoa. Because they've had this thing planning since the 80s. Like pieces of it's been around that long. So I mean, this has been something that's been going on ever since. And this ball really got rolling as soon as they got attacked and they started this war with Gaza. I mean, they really got this ball rolling because now they weren't doing it because they were going to make all the Muslims mad at them. Well, everybody's mad at them, including Turkey, who they're looking at next. I mean, this is going to escalate, and out of this thing's going to come to history. It's going to allow them to build a temple. That's what's happening, and that's what's going to happen. I mean, at this point, I don't know whatever conclusion you can get out of it, except for we kick down the can one more road. I mean, I don't know how many more cans. How do they kick the can? It's going to happen.
Yeah, the good Lord said it was going to.
It's going to. If not sooner, eventually it's going to happen within just a short time period. I can't give you. I don't know. Because you see, you wouldn't know the day nor the hour, so we really don't really know the day nor the hour, but we know it's coming. We can see it. We can see it forming.
Well, it started way back then.
Yep.
The
So
Lord said there's always going to be a thorn in your side because you didn't take care of business like I told you to.
and whenever Israel went through their revivals, they'd always start with the first 5 books of the Bible. They'd always start with the original law of God. Now it's everything. So I think there's something there. I mean, that's something that we as Christians don't study a lot of. You know, okay?
I'm burning up. I've been working.
Yeah, bulletin boards can do that to you.
They can wear you out.
I like your autumn blend out there.
Well, I'm not done,
No.
but what I can do, the rest of it that I need to do, I can sit here and listen to Lane.
You got acorn lights too. I like it.
They're not lights, they're just like jingle bells.
Oh, there's bells.
Huh?
Wish you could hear them jingle. All right. So we're in Genesis chapter 1, the most misunderstood book probably, chapter in the Bible, because it all comes down to is you're going to be literal with it, or you're going to be metaphorical with your interpretation of the Bible. All right. As independent Baptists, we follow the historical grammatical interpretation of the Bible, which means that we take account of the historical context, and then it's plain message as if you were reading anything else, right? Instead of trying to give it some mysticism behind, instead of trying to over-interpret it, because you can because if I go through by the historical accounts and I use the plain English that's there, then I can talk to you and we can come to an agreement. If I use a metaphorical interpretation of it, then it's whatever I think it means, right? You don't have the same pre-context about it. You don't, if I think if it created means something different than what you think it means, we can be on 2 different pages talking about the same thing. You never come to an agreement. There's never a halfway point. It's just whatever it's in the eye of the interpreter. It's whatever it comes up to be, and that means you have so many interpretations that you'll never. There's confusion. That's confusion. Yeah, and you have to be able to reason it. It's based on logic, right? John, hey, hi, John 1:1. It talks about it. He goes right back to this verse. And he says, "In the beginning, was the word with God. The word was God." Talking about the logos, which is the logic, right? That's the Greek word you get logic from. So it means there should be a logical explanation to this. It can't be mysticism. It can't be metaphorical. So we have to take it as literal, which is really weird because some things are like, "Oh, I don't know about that literalness." We read it and it starts kind of funny, right? But sometimes it's our perspective that's in the way, right? God knew what he was doing when he inspired this. He said it a certain way, through his Holy Spirit. We can't sit there and argue with it. It's like he said it this way for a reason.
Set up the way he wanted.
If the Bible's written the way he wants it to be written, it's his infallible word, and we're the ones that have to change. We don't make the Bible change for us. We change the Bible, right? Hi.
Yeah, for old Bill Valentine, he thought that the Bible was a book of guidelines, not so much as,
Oh yeah.
I just hope he got
Yep.
his eyes were open before he left this old
Yeah,
world.
you can believe the Bible is a book from God to man, or a book from man about God. You know, it's like two different versions. Like which I'm even gonna tell you.
He had it up there with Confucius and all that stuff. And, you know, he thought it was a book of philosophy, a book of, things that that's good report on you.
I'll see him.
He didn't see it as the infallible word of God.
Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people are. That's why they can that's how they can flip it into being wherever they want to be. They can make it confirm whatever they want to confirm, whatever viewpoint they think,
I'm glad to have him home.
and that's an issue. All right. It's like if God's word's going to be authoritative, authority, we can't let it change for us. But people want it to conform to everybody else, so that way it doesn't ruffle any feathers. That's why we're not liberal in our interpretation of the Bible, because we want the Bible to keep its authority. So and it says we're in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. I've tried a new series today anyway, so you came at the right time. Because this is what I'm doing my dissertation on.
Good.
Excellent. So I was like, I should start here since we're here. So we talk about different interpretations. You can have a metaphorical, or you can have a literal, and so we're going to take more literal, because metaphorical you can't reach an agreement on. The literal you can see it, read it in plain context. Shane will use it in plain context, and you can read it together and say, okay, if it says God in the beginning God created, he can say, okay, created means he created it. Shane can I agree. Amen. Done. I mean, nothing else to it. But some people will say, oh, it doesn't mean that. It really means this, or it really can mean this, or it can mean all this. All right? So just one in the beginning, all right? Or anything else, right? And we know that God is eternal, right? So in the eternal beginning, right? Before time, before anything else. Because God's always been. It's always going to be. All right? So the timeless beginning. There was God, right? It was just him, right? And he created. That's something that's only reserved to him, isn't it? Only God can create. That's one thing that man can't do. Man can reform it. He can reform a lot of stuff. And he can make a lot of stuff, right? We can make, right? We can make these chairs. That's cool. That doesn't exist in nature. We can make this carpet. That doesn't exist in nature. We can make these walls. We can make the ceiling. We can even make these lights, which is awesome, right? We do a lot of stuff with the technology, and we think, oh, I can make it. We can make these iPads and stuff. I mean, we think, oh, we're so cool. Look what we can do. But God can create from nothing, speak in existence. That's something that we're clueless about, right? How does he do that? I don't know. It's supernatural, right? And that's something that's observed only for him. It shows that he is higher than we are, because he can create. And he created the heaven and the earth. All right? So everything above the earth and the earth itself. The ground itself, the soil, everything in the earth itself, right? So it starts off with that blank canvas right there. Just everything engulfed in one verse. Not like that. That's what Genesis does. It starts off with a big view, and then it kind of narrows down to small view, right? Grand scheme, small scheme. Okay? So just in case there's something that we go, did he create this, or did he create that, or did he create that? If it exists, he created it. Period. Because Genesis doesn't cover the creation in every little detail. It gives the details that God thought was relevant for us to know. So it says in verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now, without form and void. It's kind of interesting because, if you go to its Hebrew, the Hebrew for without form and void is tahu ebahu. There's a word there called et, et. And a lot of people, there's a lot of people on the internet who sit there and go, oh, the King James interpreters, translators didn't translate that word et. It means something. It's like, yeah, it's not really translatable, but if it's there, you know that the word next to it is going to be void. Without it becomes worthless. So some people are like, well, it wasn't really supposed to be there, so maybe it should be without form and worthless. It wasn't worthless. God created it. It was worth something to him, right? It was created. He did it, right? He had a purpose and everything. He doesn't create anything worthless, right? That would make no sense. Why would God of infinite wisdom create something and not have a purpose in it? No, it has a purpose. He has a purpose in everything. Good and bad. He always has a greater purpose in everything. All right. So the earth was created without form, which means he just hadn't formed it yet, right? And it was void, means it didn't have any life in it. It's easy, right? So that it belongs there, and it does help us understand. Let's take a word, void. So it's without form and void, and darkness is upon the face of the deep. Why? Because he hadn't created the stars yet. All right. So there was no Big Bang. Because if there was a Big Bang, there'd be a lot of light, wouldn't there? Because there'd be a lot of energy. So it's kind of funny because there's people who will try to incorporate the Big Bang into Genesis 1:1. In fact, that's what it was originally designed to do. The guy who created the Big Bang was a Catholic physicist, I guess. He was trying to go against the common theory of the day, which was the steady state theory. Okay? The steady state said that the universe is eternal and it's always been, which we now know is definitely not true, especially since Hubble's law was discovered in the 1920s. We know the universe is expanding. So we're like, well, if it's expanding and going outwards from somewhere, then it can't be eternal. Okay, so it means it had to come from somewhere. So he tried to describe it as a Big Bang, like it all started in the middle. But it doesn't mean it has to start in the middle either. It means God created it, wherever he created it, it starts expanding. It doesn't mean it has to start in a speck. Okay, it doesn't mean that. But, he tries to stick that, just one, yeah, that's the Big Bang. But there's no light. Because that would have pushed matter out, that would have pushed gas into gas, and we create the stars and the days of the planets would come second. That's not how the Big Bang works. That's called cosmic evolution. And cosmic evolution, which is just as dangerous as biological evolution, which is what we usually think of when we think about evolution, right? So Genesis 1:1 destroys cosmic evolution just as much as the rest of Genesis destroys biological evolution. So you can't, they don't go together. They're not feasible, right? You can't make one fit into the other. So and that's what a lot of more liberal Christians will try to do. They'll try to somehow force those things back into the Bible, and they don't fit. It's like oil and water; they don't mix. Okay. So there was darkness upon the face of the deep because there's no light, there's no other energy present. It's just God, right? He's the source of the energy, so he hasn't put anything else out there. He just created something, right? And it was just without any life in it. It was without any form. And it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters of the deep. That word moved in Hebrew could be described as hovered. He's just hovering there, looking at this, And he said, let there be light. And there was light. Well, where was the light coming from? He hadn't created the stars yet. I saw this one day and I was like, made me want to do a couple laps around the house. Because where was the light coming from? Light has to have a source, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? I turn off the lights in here, there's going to be light coming from that window, right? If I covered that window, and I covered these doors, and I covered all those things, it'd become pitch black in here, wouldn't it? Because light has to have a source. So where was this light coming from, you think?
The sun.
There was no sun. There's no stars.
From God himself. He is light.
It had to come from God himself.
Oh.
When Jesus said, I am the light of the world, in the beginning, he really was the light of the world. He's not just figuratively the light. He at one time was the literal light of the world. Isn't that amazing? That made me want to do a couple laughs. I'm like, so when he says that, I'm like, people are like, oh, that's just figurative. That's just figurative. But all you do is study the Bible figuratively. You miss out the fact that he was there. He did it. He spoke it. He became it. And you're like, whoa. That's a lot more than any human moral man can do. That just shows you right there his deity. In the beginning of Genesis, right there. He's just showing off. He became the light of the world. So God spoke, and it happened. He became that light. And God saw the light was good. Love was coming from him. It has to be good, right? Because in him is no darkness at all. That's what the Bible says, right? Yeah. And why you always call the world darkness, right? Because darkness doesn't have any fellowship with light, does it? Yeah, that's why in verse 5, well, let's see. That's why it says in verse 4, it says, and God divided the light from the darkness. There's always been a division between light and darkness, hasn't there? And later on, when evil comes to the world, there's that division because he describes that evil just like that darkness. They couldn't go together either, right? So light has always been associated with goodness. So guess what? Darkness automatically, when evil comes to the world, it's associated with evil whenever it comes to the world, right? Later on. It's not there yet because the world's still good. You ever see somebody who says, well, God's so good, why do so many bad things happen? Because they want to make God the author of darkness, don't they? They want God to be responsible for sin, because if God's responsible for sin, you can't hold me accountable, God. All right? But what does it say? He always says it's good. So right here in verse 4, it's the first time he ever says, he said it was good. God made a perfect world, right? Everything he created was good. He was not the author of evil. He wasn't the author of darkness. He's not the one that he created everything that's wrong with the world. So we can't blame him for all the bad things in that world, right? We can't blame him for being the one that puts evil in people's hearts to do unspeakable things, like it's happened this week, or last week, the week after that, the week before that. There's always something evil happening in this world, right? You don't have to look at the news long enough to see all the things. You go, whoa. It's like Jesus must be coming back soon. Whoa.
And if
Right?
people think they can blame it on God, then they don't have to deal with the reality. They can just blame it on God and not deal with.
We want to bring God down. We want to bring God down to our level, just like the ancients used to do by making their gods into people who made mistakes. I mean, look at the Greeks, what they did with Zeus. Zeus would cheat on his wife Hera all the time and have all these little babies that would become heroes because they were demigods. And why would they create stories like that? Because that brought God down to man's level, and just as evil as man was, then why do you have to look at God for your morality? You don't. Right? And the Greeks were very wicked. I mean, they had all sorts of wickedness, and throughout their civilization, bisexuality was common in the Greek civilization. They didn't care, right? They didn't care if a baby's died. They didn't care. They would sacrifice them to gods. I mean, they would do all sorts of wicked and unspeakable acts to appease their gods, because they would, in fact, in order to have a harvest, they thought it was the man's job to go to the temple, to play the temple prostitute, to do those unspeakable acts with her, in order so they wouldn't get a harvest. That was the baseline of Greek civilization, right? So think about that. That's what the ancients did when they tried to blame God for all the evil in the world. They were trying to bring God to their level so they could do what they want. It's all about doing what they want to do. They don't want to be held accountable. Okay? When God created the world, he created it good. All right? Started with the light, it was good. And that light, he automatically said, does not go to darkness. He always separated, right? Because once you created the light, the darkness was shown, right? Before the light was there, they didn't know there was darkness. What did we? You can see it. So he didn't create the darkness. Darkness was just the absence of the light. He created the light. Right? It was just like he created good. Well, then that automatically there should be evil, right? Not that he created the evil. Right? That's just the absence of the good. Right? And it says in verse 5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So a lot of people, they like to take that verse in 1 Peter. That 1,000 years of the Lord, when the day of the Lord is 1,000 years, 1,000 years as of the day, right? You try to say that, right? But remember, the Bible is written with Genesis before 1 Peter was ever written, thousands of years before Peter. So how would anybody at this time understand that as being 1,000 years? They wouldn't. They wouldn't. So you can't use that verse to interpret this verse.
Well, Genesis calls it exactly what it is: the morning and
In the evening.
It
defines it in the verse as morning and evening. So you're looking. It looks like a literal day. In fact, if you take it to the Hebrews is a very literal language. Everything is very concrete. Every word they use is it can represent with a physical object. That's how ancient Hebrew works. It's represented with a physical object. So it's understood in its original context as a physical, as a literal 24-hour day.
That starts at sundown.
It starts at sunrise and sundown.
It says,
So
and the evening and the morning were the first day. So it starts at sundown.
Mhm.
Each day starts at sundown.
That's what it was for the Hebrew calendar.
Yes.
They started it evening up and it became
The day start.
Yeah.
6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is their day, and
Yeah.
then 6 p.m.
It's
to 6 a.m.
different.
is their night.
It's different than what we think of through Westernized because we started at 12 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Mhm.
Right? 12 p.m. then 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. You know, they think of it that way, but you know, God's the one who originally defined what a day was, right? So he's the one that's always called things a day. Okay, he's the one who authored what time is. He shows how we could keep track of time. Right, it started with him. So we have to understand it's 24 hours because this is where we got the idea of a 24-hour day from. Right? And even if you went to the most remote regions of the world, into any remote tribe, they would still understand what a day was. Darkness and light. Darkness to light. Darkness to light. They still define it that way. You notice that?
Mhm.
They don't give it any other definition, do they? They always call it some type of day
Mhm.
and night. They might use their word for it, but they still understand that as a concept, right? And they may not even know who God is, but they still understand that from sometime. It came from somewhere, right? So that's one of those things you see everywhere. All right, it says, and God said, let there be a firmament. A firmament just means a sky. Okay? People try to talk about, there's a dome. You ever hear people talk about the flat earth? There's a dome. Those rockets can't go past the firmament. Where is the dome in this? Do you see a dome in there, Joe? I don't read that in there. That's adding to the Bible. What does it say? It just says a firmament, which is a sky. Okay? An atmosphere, if you would, right? Let there be a sky in the midst of the waters. And let it divide the waters from the waters. Well, that sounds very confusing. Some people are like, what on earth? So you have an earth. It doesn't have any form. It is void of life. But you know there's water present. And he's talking about creating a sky. So the earth didn't even have an atmosphere. It's just kind of water just kind of floating around a sphere, right? Right? It's matter. And so he's making it where there's the water's divided. Some of it's on the land, some of it's in the sky. What's in the sky? What's the water in the sky?
Clouds.
The clouds. So there's clouds up here. There's water down here. I think it's interesting that Genesis recognizes that clouds are made of water. You ever think about that? Clouds are made of water. We know water comes out of the sky, but how do the ancients know that there's the water, that the clouds were actually made of the water itself? I think it's very interesting. It shows something to me. I don't know you, but it does to me. That because God told him right here. It said it in Genesis 6. So God told him. Right, we're just going to probably get like the first couple of days of this, and we'll stop. Okay. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which are under the firmament, which waters which were above the firmament, and so it was so. So he created the sky, created the clouds, created the oceans, right? So all there is just oceans right now because he hasn't separated nothing yet, right? So that's all he's done so far. And he called the firmament heaven. This is not the heaven that we think of where we say, oh, God lives in the heaven with all the angels. This is not that heaven, right? That's the highest heaven. Paul describes it as 3 heavens. First heaven is your sky. Second heaven is space, outer space. It's kind of what we think of as separate heaven. Second heaven. Third heaven is that realm where the angels are, right? That's the highest heaven, okay? And there's nothing beyond that because there's nothing higher than God, okay? But so when it talks about heaven here, that's just talking about the sky again, right? He called the firmament heaven. All right, the first heaven. And the evening and morning were the second day. So again, it keeps the same. It should have the second. If we understand this evening and morning as a 24-hour period, guess what? The first one at the time was mentioned should also be a 24-hour period. It wouldn't change. He defines it the same way. It should have the same definition. All right. So we'll go to verse 10, stop. That's what we'll do. 10 verse, that'll be a nice round, even number. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered into one place and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Okay. So this is when you start to finally see him talking, creating continents and things, and not just being one big ocean, right? So that meant that he had to do some form of the land and stuff, right? Make the ridges, make the mountains and stuff, and make the continents so they stick out of the water. Okay. Was there a supercontinent of Pangea or not? I don't know. I don't know. I don't see anything that contradicts that, but do I know it's there? No. It just says he just made land appear, right? And we have a lot of water going to the same spot, so we know there's oceans, at least an ocean, if not many oceans, right?
Science proves the Bible right there. If you
So-
look at a map of the planet and you push it all together, it fits.
It could be.
He
He could have made it start with a supercontinent and then split them up and then flood. That's how a lot of creation scientists put it, but that's a theory. Just like anything else. The Bible doesn't say it was one supercontinent, we just know it doesn't contradict what it says.
Right.
All right. We just know he created the land, he created the ocean, all right? And it was so, right? God said, let it be, right? It was so. And God called the dry land earth, which means, the soil, right? The soil itself, and gathered together the waters and called he seas, right? So that there would have been, the oceans, where most of the water went, but anything got trapped in land, there would become inland seas, right? And God saw it was good, and God said, let the earth bring forth. Not yet. It's the only problem with having this tablet. It goes that. All right, remember verse 10. All right, and gathered together the waters called seas, and God saw it was good. And so let the earth bring forth grass and herb and yielding seed and fruit, and a tree yielding fruit after its kind, and whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And we're going to 12:1. And the earth brought forth grass and herb and yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. All right? And again, you see the same phrase, and the evening and morning were the third day. So we're going to try to stop at the third day. I guess right now. That's a pretty good time to stop anyway, right? That number 3. All right. So has God created the sun and stars yet and the moon? No. There's still no sun. There's still no stars. There's still no moon, but yet he has plants. So how does he keep the plants from dying? Remember, there's still light, isn't there? Which comes from him. He's the light of the world still. Right? So he's the one who's still sustaining life. He creates life, he sustains life. He's shown all that in the first 3 days. He's the life bringer. Right? There's no source of life. Hey, what? What? I decided we were going to go to Genesis. I want to hear my spiel, my ring roll in Genesis. So we'll stop there today, and I'll go ahead and get everything set up for our service.
What's up, Snake Handler?